join in before we formally start the session. Yeah. Since this is being live streamed, I would ask all of you to switch on the video cameras and all. I mean, I'm so sorry that I wasn't there for the past 2 weeks, but now that I am, we'll be able to, get through this session in another, very successful manner. And I feel that Shivpriya has done a fantastic job of conducting the previous two sessions. Yeah, so let's go on. I'm just waiting for a few attendees who had confirmed their presence and, just asked that they would like to speak on some topics. So meanwhile, what you guys can do is, let's decide the order first, the four of you, among the four of you, and let's like fix the order later when the other speakers keep joining in. So, all right. Um, I think that you can give me a thumbs up so that we can decide the initial order of the speakers. Yeah, okay, okay. Just a sec. Let me just type out the order, huh? So among the four of you, then I see, all right. See, we'll be going forward in this order, and I'm just waiting for the other people to join in so that we go on and, we have a successful session. So this will be the initial order, and after that, I'll just keep adding the speakers, as notify me. So meanwhile, before we begin the session, I think we'll begin on 7:10. So just let me know, like, what were the broad takeaways from the last session? Because I feel that the last brief, when I designed it, it was relating and it was more relevant with reference to the caste census, if I'm right, or was it mental health? I mean, if I'm like referring to any of these topics, do mention like what were your broad takeaways when you were in the last two sessions. So you can go one by one on this. I think Anmol will begin from, we'll begin with you. So if you were attending these sessions, what were your, I would say, broad takeaways regarding that?
Alankrita, I wasn't present for the last session due to some medical emergency in the family. But before that, the topic was corporal punish. Sorry, it was regarding mental health of the students, and my
Mm-hmm.
topic was corporal punishment and its effect.
Okay.
And personally, I found it very enlightening, not just for my topic, as others as well. As far as I remember, I'm recollecting it as I go on. It's because like mental health is already a very hush hush topic, and when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to students, it's like it's taken very lightly, not students or children. And personally, for me, I find it that I want to talk about it more and more, not as an adult but as a child, because mostly when we talk about everyday functioning of an individual, and if
Mm-hmm.
they suffer from something, mostly when we talk to a psychologist or a therapist, they try to go to the root cause of it, and the root cause is mostly in childhood. And
Mm.
if we focus more towards the mental health in children, then these root causes can be, fixed from the start, and more healthy and well functioning individuals and adults can be created. That's
So,
what I
okay. So, drawing from your view, would you think that a lot of, I would say, the way we study mental health care, especially in the syllabus of psychology or in the gamut of psychology, do you
think.
think that it is still very much psychoanalytic, like centered? It's still centered a lot around Freudian techniques and, all the legacies these scholars like Freud and Jung left out. But I think while we are considering this point, we also need to reevaluate the efficiency of these techniques. So, what do you think about that?
कल सुबह जाना है ना
Yes.
रात को
Okay.
कर देता है order 129
Okay, so what I think is that, yeah, I like a lot of present techniques are built up upon what was given
Mm-hmm.
by like you mentioned Freud
Freud
and
and Young.
other. Yeah. So I think more can be evolved, because now it's time that we need. Sorry, I'm having difficulty to frame it. Um,
Yeah.
uh, we need more evolved concepts, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot has been like Freud just talks about id, ego, super ego, and
Or psychosexual stages or
yeah,
psychosexual
not
development. Yeah,
everything is psychosexual. Not everything can
very
be
true.
just
Boil down to
quoted
an
in.
Oedipal complex or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. There are more broad spectrums now.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you, even if we take sexual context in what is that, even in
Yeah.
consideration. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think more evolved studies need to be done. Um, yeah.
So I think that a lot of child psychology or the techniques we employ in child psychology still kind of invalidate children. Don't you think about that? I mean, I would like others to chip in this discussion as well, because I think what is really missing from the mental health discourse, especially when it pertains to children and school children, it still treats them somehow as if they don't really understand their own emotions. So what do you think about this? Anyone with any views on this?
Um,
Yeah,
so
sure, Ayush, go on.
yeah, I think the approach is too technical for children, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, because if we start to divide the sections into too many segregations, it
Yeah.
just complicates the situation for children,
Mm-hmm.
because firstly, they don't understand what they are going through. They don't understand completely the situations they are going through. So, if we give a tag to their situations, uh, I feel that it would complicate it further.
Hmm.
So, I think it's not only about the schools or the administration, but it's also the job for the parents and the peer groups of friends to understand uh, what the person is going through internally, and
Hmm.
try to communicate as much as you can, so that the person who feels a bit isolated because their parents don't understand what they're going through, they feel open to share. And
Mm-hmm.
I think sharing makes it a lot easier to go through mental health issues or anything like anxiety or depression. The more you share, the more it gets easier with time.
Mm-hmm. And I think that I would like to chip into this that the more you share, I think somehow we are also engaging in a kind of verbal processing of events so
Yeah,
that it helps us understand it more.
yeah,
But I feel that, while the job is more on the community to translate theory into practice, I think there are some faults in the field itself. So that I think in the future research we pioneer in psychology or child psychology or psychiatry in particular, they should take these issues in concern because as I always say, that there's always a kind of politics existing everywhere.
yeah,
And I think when we deal with psychology and when we deal with, let's say, treating or in its curative capacity, first of all we need to understand that the stigma around mental health begins from the fact that it's not quote unquote an illness which is going to have a p to the q cure.
yeah,
Yeah. So because it's actually a spectrum and the understanding about it is like very limited within the field itself. Because what we consider as therapy, what we consider as, let's say, visiting the psychiatrist or
yeah,
engaging in cognitive behavioral therapies, we always almost, refer to it as a very curative thing. We don't really refer to it as a preventive issue because I feel that a lot of literature is still missing on the fact that what do the children feel about it when they go through these therapies? Do they really think that it's effective, or has it completely stopped? Because the scope of relapse, I don't think that we are taking it in account whenever we
yeah.
talk about these issues. So yeah, good thing. I think now the speakers have joined us. I think Ketki and Radhika. So you can just decide in the order in which you would like to speak so that we can determine it. I'm expecting Adiba to join in as well. Maybe she'll do it later. So I think we should begin with the discussion, even when the strength is kind of dwindling today. So that's not a cause to hold back, I would say, and I would think that we'll get more time to express our views and engage in a more productive discussion. So let's go on. Anmol, I think you can start speaking on your topic. Meanwhile, Ketki and Radhika, just let me know whosoever's message I see, like, before. So I'll just list out the order. Okay, Daisy is also here. All right. Okay, fine. Anmol, you may begin.
Okay, so my topic for today is the possibility of students designing their own curriculum. So, as we are all aware by now, that the new education policy is focused more on experiential and practical learning of the students rather than traditional textual and surface knowledge. The possible so for the possibility of students designing their own curriculum is a form of active student participation, which implies that students are not passive and do not simply absorb knowledge transmitted by their teachers, something that NEP objectives desire to attain. Now, conventionally, curriculum is it has been viewed as the territory of academic staff and curriculum planner. However, some proponents argue that enabling students to participate in their own curriculum design is critical in order for learning to be more meaningful and to encourage students to take responsibility within the learning process. The students further transform into active and critical citizens with the potential to change their communities. Other benefits that include are that students discover the depth of faculty commitment to their learning, enhanced knowledge about their discipline and learning process, and with increased confidence to express their views in academic settings. They also report enhancement in group cohesion, collective responsibility, and transformed teaching practices. So during my research, I came across a model named Ladder of Student Participation in Curriculum by University of Glasgow, inspired from Sherry Arnstein in 1969. So the university little bit modified the Arnstein model. Now, under this model, there are eight. Imagine there's a ladder with eight rungs, and with each level, there's an increasing level of student involvement. So, the first level is the dictated curriculum. There's no interaction, and the students just turn up for the class, or they don't. It's just a dictated curriculum. They are told what to do, and they just do it. The second is the participation. Some participation is claimed, but tutor is still in control. So you are aware of feedback mechanisms. So yeah, the students are given feedback forms, but those forms are rarely used um, to bring any significant changes in the curriculum. The third is the limited choice from prescribed choices, where the students are offered some choices over small elements, like, they can choose particular readings to be read in the next classroom or so. The fourth is they're given wider choices from prescribed choices, where the students choose their type of assessment, but that too, the assessment regulations are still regulated by the tutor. The fifth is the student control of prescribed areas. Students are offered control of specific areas which are selected by the tutor themselves. For example, students can now design their own assessments along with the regulations. The sixth rung is the students control some of the areas of choice, like students choose areas of curriculum they want to design. That's, for example, student design a project to achieve set learning outcomes. The seventh is the partnership between the tutor and the student, where means students actively and meaningfully negotiate with the tutor and design the curriculum. And the eighth and the most uncommon one is where the students are in complete control, which implies the tutor is absent. Now, it is very uncommon, but can be possible in some vocational courses where students are given the freedom to design a work-based audit project for which they write their own learning outcomes, design a project plan, implement and evaluate accordingly. Now, the utility of this model is still debatable, but the concept of increased student participation within levels is something that is feasible and can be done for now. Now, there are some challenges also when it comes to the possibility of student participation in curriculum design, is that the students um, is that the nature of tutors who they act as gatekeepers to the curriculum, choosing whether or not to allow students to participate in the curriculum design. This idea might make some academic staff uncomfortable as it threatens their status as an expert and implies the possibility of relinquishing the total control over the curriculum. Also, teachers need to recognize students as responsible and capable, or else the whole partnership will lead to students becoming disengaged, alienated, and teacher driven. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Anmol. And I really liked how you picked out that point where, you pointed out this problem of the academia in general, where they do not like to relinquish control. And I think it's not only the fact in early childhood education, but it is a fact which is carried onto the institutions of higher academia, because it seems like, whenever you enter the classroom, it happens to have a very unicentric dimension. And when we are dealing in a very democratic perspective, when we are trying to, let's say, diffuse that kind of power in educational institutes and the way we are disseminating education, it's also about instilling a spirit that through democratic education, it's not just about democracy, but the nature of education itself. It begins with decentralization. And, when we just vest educators with this power that, you have this power to say yes or no, kind of a veto they practice in the curriculum. It's a very unsaid practice in academia. So I think that somewhere or the other, we are not being justified in, let's say, disseminating or realizing the aims of the NEP 2020. Not just that, but what education really stands for. Because while you're training people to speak up, while you're training people to have their voice, at the same time, this kind of temperament is at odds with what you say and what you practice. So very well done, Anmol. The next speaker is Isha, according to that order. So Isha, you may unmute.
Hi everyone. My topic happens to be the same as Anmol's, the possibility of students designing their own curriculum, examples, and challenges. And I believe that the strategies I'll propose will lie somewhere in the ladder model that Anmol proposed. So, I believe that if students are given the opportunity to be active participants in the curriculum design process, they'll be able to have a greater sense of ownership over their actions. At the same time, students will become more confident and better decision makers. In a broader sense, students designing their own curriculums can lead to a more student centric educational framework that caters better to students' interests, capabilities, and passions. So, let us now discuss some realistic ways in which educational institutions can facilitate active participation of their students in curriculum design. The first method is by providing greater flexibility in the choice of subjects. So, most of us remember having to choose from three specific streams when we entered the 11th grade: science, commerce, and humanities. And the scope of choosing anything beyond or in between that was almost non existent. But providing students more flexibility in their choice of streams can help explore different career choices by facilitating an interdisciplinary approach. For example, a student who aspires to become an urban planner might want to take up both sociology and mathematics. Similarly, an aspiring political risk analyst might want to take up both political science and business studies. Thus, providing greater flexibility in choice of subjects is a simple yet effective measure to actively involve students in the curriculum design process. The second method could be student feedback. Um, it can be rather challenging to make students, especially school students, literally design each and everything that they wish to study for obvious reasons. And that is where feedback plays an integral role. Schools can conduct surveys and get to know the interests and aspirations of students and modify the existing curriculum accordingly. However, the effectiveness of student feedback, as mentioned earlier by Anmol, stays questionable, and schools need to work on that. The third one is the curriculum advisory panels, and this can be thought of as a more complex version of student feedback surveys. In the higher education institutes, the barriers of lack of knowledge and maturity are not present, unlike in the case of school children. So advisory panels can be established in colleges and universities. These panels would include students, administrators, and faculty, and students would then be an integral part of the decision-making process. The fourth approach could be incorporating research projects. By incorporating research projects whose choice of topic lies completely with the students, schools and colleges can ensure that students have an active say in their curriculum. And although students at the college level are required to write a dissertation or research paper, it is specific only to certain courses and also usually to the final year. This approach can thus be extended to all college years and courses, and also introduced. It can also be introduced in 11th and 12th class for 11th and 12th class students. The last approach that I'll talk about is tailored teaching methods. Students can also influence curriculum design if they have a say in the teaching methods adopted. This should be based on an active feedback mechanism. So, here I'd like to share a personal anecdote. During my previous semester, we had a subject called computer applications in business, and as a sub part of it, we had computer theory. So the practical part was really well received as it was an interesting subject relatively. But the theory part was too monotonous and it wasn't well received by the students. So our professor, what he did was that he told us to provide feedback chits in the classroom itself, and that was a very effective as well as interesting approach because that made a complete shift, that led to a complete shift in the way he taught us from passive note taking to active discussions and peer teaching methods. And honestly, personally, also, I felt really empowered as a student because I had a say in what was happening in the classroom. So, such is the power of actively involving students in curriculum design. But we must also address the challenges related to it. Firstly, it is important to understand that the level of student participation in curriculum design will vary with varying grades. For example, for a nursery student, active participation in curriculum might look like a student telling their teacher that they want to study about a particular animal, for example, a panda or a gorilla, or they might want to study about a particular body part, like the eye or the nose. But for someone at the college level, it might look completely different. So this is indeed a complex task. The second challenge is that students might themselves be reluctant to take part in the design process and view it as an additional task or unnecessary burden. The third challenge might be that students might lack the competence needed to be completely handed over the responsibility of curriculum design. Even at higher educational levels, students might still be unaware of the various secondary factors that affect the feasibility as such, and these might include the concerned costs or availability of personnel, etc. So, student participation in curriculum design needs to be broken down into realistic steps and viewed as a gradual process rather than an unwanted disruption. Student led curriculums have the capability to uplift students' status from passive recipients to that of active participants in the educational process. And so it becomes important for schools, colleges, policymakers, and students alike to work in this direction. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isha, for that, I would say, very insightful speech, because it's very important to take sides of these challenges as well. And I think what really stood out to me was reconciling the comprehensiveness of the curriculum with the preference for the particular. Because while we are talking about early childhood education, and it's definitely different than what we deal with in, let's say, the gamut of higher academia, where people are asked to choose, or are asked to choose specializations. It happens a lot in specialized degrees, as like honors courses and all such. But what I think is that while we are integrating or introducing the part of curriculum design in early childhood education, especially in like grades 1 to 5 or 6 to 8, so I think that it will help to have a person on the board who is especially like quite an expert in curriculum design, and then they acknowledge the students' views by, just introducing this gamut of discussions in class. Because I feel that even though students won't be able to understand the kind of nitty-gritties associated with curriculum design, or may perceive it as an additional, like let's say what you phrased it as, burden. I think that just by introducing it via discussions or broaching the perspective first, I think it's definitely going to set a very strong foundation for making curriculum design process more integrative and participative. So quite well done, Isha. And I think that I will engage with you on another aspect of your speech after all the speakers are done. Yeah. So the third speaker we have is Ayush. Ayush, you may unmute.
So the topic which I've chosen is private-public partnerships in promulgating the rights of children in educational institutions. So public-private partnerships have been advertised as improving the quality of education delivered by compensating for the low investment capabilities and lack of state capacity in education. PPPs have the ability to provide financing far exceeding what governments can contribute. The private sector makes valuable contributions that include expertise in human resources, administration, logistics, and research. Benefits to the private sector include increased company visibility and recognition, and the access to new markets for products and services. The private sector also brings business discipline, leadership, creativity, and specialized knowledge in a particular field. However, private entities may have difficulty not only ensuring the sustainability of projects, but also preserving transparency and accountability, maintaining coordination with other project partners, and developing trust within their respective communities. For the purpose of understanding it in a better way, we would be having a brief look at the case study of public-private partnership in the state of Rajasthan. So, as a response to Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, which is the government of India's flagship program focused on universalization of elementary education in a time-bound manner, as mandated by the 86th Amendment, which talked about free and compulsory education to children in the 6 to 14-year age gap. The state of Jharkhand launched the Government Education Initiative in 2005 to improve learning skills. The REI focuses on girls, rural children, urban underprivileged children, and children with special needs through ICT interventions. To meet the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan goals, the REI adopted two basic approaches. First was to use the community mobilization to enroll underprivileged and marginalized children, especially girls. And second was the use of ICT with a focus on vulnerable children. So, for the purpose of attaining the said goals, the Rajasthan Ministry of Education signed a memorandum with Educate Girls Globally, a San Francisco-based non-profit organization that has been working in the area of girls' education since 2000. Now, what were the challenges and lessons learned by the public-private partnerships between EGG and the Ministry of Education, Rajasthan? So the first one was that through a project implemented via this PPP, EGG helped provide educational opportunities to these difficult to reach and vulnerable children. The MOU between EGG and the Rajasthan Ministry of Education aim to develop and test a replicable and sustainable model for identifying critical needs for girls' education, reducing gender disparity among students, and increasing enrollment and retention of girls, and enriching the lives of out of school girls. Now, this project complemented the efforts of the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan by developing mechanisms to enroll girls, which involves community participation in the education of their own village girls and ownership of the school education program. Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan helped the NGO in local integration by mobilizing communities and provided logistic support to the team, including sharing survey reports and attending Gram Shiksha Samiti meetings. Now, the NGO learned the critical importance of receiving full cooperation from the government to make the partnership a success. It received strong support from top senior officials in the Rajasthan Ministry of Education, mainly because of the signed memorandum. Now, the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan officials appreciated the efforts and its ability to make scheduled visits to schools not being visited by the committee, as well as random visits to school already visited by them. Now, government officials provided full cooperation and support to EGG's community mobilization, efforts by accompanying the staff to villages and making introductions to village leaders, which helped the NGO's entrance and gradual acceptance in the villages. Fifth was the survey and the discrepancies which was noticed by the NGO of the village data, uh, which were provided by the school headmasters and the data which was collected by the NGO staff. Now, due to the trust gained by the Ministry of Education Rajasthan and as well as with the NGO EGG, these data discrepancies were taken seriously and the government data was also updated, which is a rare act. Now, sixth is while the Rajasthan Ministry of Education was successful in increasing the enrollment rates, the NGO helped the government improve school retention rates, especially for girls. Uh, it was also able to reach vulnerable children the government was struggling to reach. Now, its ability to build on and complete the government's education efforts contributed greatly to the successful relationship between the two parties. Seventh is the Gram Siksha Samiti meetings are conducted in villages to mobilize communities and encourage community members to become active participants in the schools and work together to improve the situation of girls' education. With the government support, the NGO motivated members not only to attend the monthly meetings but also to participate in formulation of action plans designed to tackle problems associated with girls' education. Eighth and the most important and crucial aspect which was noticed by the NGO was the caste system. The caste system emerged as one of the major obstacles for community mobilization. In some villages, the problem was so intense that upper caste and lower caste people did not look at each other. And as a result, one Siksha Samiti was not formed in a school. Oftentimes, only upper caste people attended meetings or just lower caste people, but not both together. Even in local schools, children from different caste groups did not sit by each other or talk to one another. The NGO's team recognized that the caste problem was a major barrier to forming Gram Siksha Samiti in villages and for bringing together different caste groups on the same platform for the betterment of girls in their villages. Through its strong partnership with the government, the NGO was able to involve the community enough to overcome this problem. It started using motivational strategies to empower parents to send their daughters to school, such as engaging religious and opinion leaders and caste heads of the community, holding separate meetings with mothers of girls, and consistently following up with parents on their daughters' education. In general, parents were hesitant to send their daughters to school because they didn't truly understand the benefits of education girls. Moreover, parents thought it was best for their daughters to stay at home and to manage the household, uh, to keep their dowry obligations low, and to protect them from harm. To counter these notions, the NGO's team shared examples of educated girls and women from the communities and showed how education has helped them in their lives. Eventually, most parents recognized that if their daughters knew how to read and write, they would have better opportunities to get jobs or to set up their own enterprise to earn money. And the ninth, to encourage children's participation on matters affecting them, the NGO trained teachers on forming and managing children's groups, such as the Bal Sabha, in the 50 pilot schools initially. Bal Sabhas are communities of 6 to 10, 7 to 8 grade girls that aim to create role models out of these girls. Every Bal Sabha has a president and 5 secretaries, each with a specific portfolio including health, culture, literacy, administration, and sports. Both students and teachers welcomed Bal Sabha as an effective tool to engage children in their schools. The girls participating in Bal Sabhas emerged as strong leaders, demonstrating their capabilities to organize health checkups at school, improve girls' enrollment and retention rates, and showcase talents of peer groups during cultural activities. Bal Sabhas helped girls build confidence and become more vocal and motivated parents to continue sending their daughters to school. In conclusion, I would say to answer the question of what do we learn from this case study, it can be stationed in just 6 brief points. First, understand the local economic and cultural context of the area chosen for any initiatives by the public-private partnerships. Two, clearly define attainable goals and outline expected tangible results. Third, build strong relationships among private partners and the government. Fourth, involve government in follow-up activities. 5. Strengthen existing government infrastructures and avoid creating parallel structures, as by doing so, winning the trust of the local population becomes difficult. And 6. Regular follow-ups are necessary in order to see the results to long-term goals. Thank you.
So that was a great case study, Ayush, and I feel that the scope of public-private partnerships is merely not antagonistic as usually perceived by people, because they think that public and private are antithetical, especially in the matters of administration. But I think that it is also the fault of theory and the theorists that they are not able to identify these common areas of collaboration, because I somehow feel that whenever we deal with public private collaborations, it's not just in the gamut of funding, that whatever the public sector lacks, the private sector is just going to fill in the gaps. But I think it's about true enrichment, because as you pointed out, that I feel that there was this exercise of the updation of the existing government data, which is very rarely done. And I think this was not just a strategy of merely filling into the gaps, because this was more than that. It was identifying the gap and then treating it as it should be. So I think that the first point to begin with public-private partnerships in, reframing early childhood education, and even the, I would say, by and large educational policy pertaining to specific state models or state boards, I think it really begins with identifying these common grounds of collaboration rather than just antagonizing each other. So quite well presented. The next speaker is Achal. So Achal, I think you can unmute and we can listen to your views. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, am I audible?
Yeah, you are. Please go on.
Okay. I'm so sorry about my camera. I'm facing a power cut right now, so I'm just completely in the dark.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah, so today I'd like to take a critical view on moral education in the NEP, sensitizing children about ethics. And basically, I want to look at moral education as it is, value education, and how it is being presented in the NEP, and like the problem of value-based education in India and inculcating ethics in children, essentially. So since childhood, we are basically taught what is morally right and wrong, such as we are taught not to cheat, we are taught not to steal, but without much further explanation beyond this is right and this is wrong. Even going as far as this is something that good children do, this is something as bad children do, is something that we are taught as young, impressionable children, which continues, I would say, till around fifth, sixth grade, at which point they start treating students as middle schoolers with a little more developed sense of moral righteousness and justice, at which point they switch to a more nuanced view, I would say, of morals, but still with not very much explanation about what makes something right or what makes something wrong. It essentially is a blanket statement of we are teaching you that this is right and this is wrong, so this is what you must obey. We are taught not to question whether something is right or wrong, typically throughout our lives or until the collegiate level, at least, at which point we learn a little bit more about different schools of thought, about different morals, about different ethical views, and tend to question the things we were taught and from what objective were they right or wrong. Was it just the instinct to obey an adult, or was it actually something that would harm another individual? So the current view of moral education, I feel, in India is mostly from a point of authority. It's taught from a place of not objectivity, but of this is an adult telling you what is right and wrong, and this is all you should obey with like complete blindness, essentially, without questioning what kind of impact will it have on others if you tend to do the opposite. And NEP 2020, I believe, does not do a lot to change the way this education is delivered. It essentially highlights that such education will take place through two prongs. The first being that it will revolve around the five universal values, which are truth, peace, nonviolence, love, and righteous conduct. They say that these are already highlighted in various religions. They're already pretty well inculcated in the Indian education system, and there's already a lot of material available. And all that is being done by the NEP 2020 in pushing this further is just to increase essentially the material that is available to school students directly. And they say this will be the best for the young children to learn what is good, to imbibe a love for country, its ideals and values through a religious perspective, and to inculcate the same in value based education as a subject would teach them to not fall prey to ill will, to violence, dishonesty, and hopefully in the future allow them to continue such values in their careers. But this is, I feel, a very narrow minded view of the kind of education that students receive. Because teaching education in a theoretical aspect, and especially the way it's taught right now from a blind obey aspect, obedience aspect, tends to lead them tends to lead some students not to question what they're taught, and this can ultimately end up badly if an adult or authority figure gives them bad morals or bad values. But also, while not teaching them to question what they're taught, and while only teaching these values in a theoretical aspect, it fails to teach them how to practice them in a very real sense in the real world by saying, okay, so this is good morals, this is good values, and in value based education, we'll be covering these. It's just another subject that is taught from a textbook in a classroom without any real world applications or examples that would really help them to cement these values in their worldview, in their practice. So, hoping that these students will continue with these same good morals and good values while only teaching them in a classroom is a very narrow minded view that really lets down these students who could have amazing potential to be great world leaders, but might be held back because they either didn't receive enough of an education or weren't given enough examples on how to put those morals and values into practice. Further, the NEP also outlines that during early childhood, instead of focusing only on fundamentals such as ABC and 1, 2, 3, the major focus should also be on inculcating good habits, values, discipline, manners, care and concern for each other, being helpful, learning to share, being friendly, doing their duties, respecting adults, love, ahimsa, peace, experiencing joy of silence, and so on and so forth. And all of these values, while they might sound good on paper, while they might sound something that we want our children to have at a young age, only teaching them is like we teach them ABC, like we teach them 1, 2, 3, taking the same approach to teaching them such important lessons can end up failing them entirely, because we don't know how much they will absorb and whether they will absorb it unquestioningly, whether they will truly understand that these morals are not just sentences, not just words that they should repeat to themselves and keep in mind, but also something that has multifaceted applications and should be applied in their approach to others. I think the NEP 2020 could leaves a lot to be desired in terms of value-based education and in terms of moral education, in terms of really teaching students how to practice good values rather than just teaching them good values. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
That was actually very well articulated, Achal. And I think after Ketki and Radhika have finished with their views, we'll come back to this because I think this is one of the topics I was wishing to tackle in detail with reference to our activities in Sarkari school and as well as our experiences as people in academia, people who have gone through this grueling ordeal, or maybe this kind of gamut where we were told what is good and what is bad. So we'll come back to that definitely. Meanwhile, I would ask Ketki to unmute herself and please share your views, Ketki.
Yeah, hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, so would it be okay if I switch my video off because the internet bandwidth is really low?
It's okay, it's okay.
All right. So today I'm going to discuss the topic the role of teachers and the community in empowering children with agency. So, this subject is deeply rooted in our educational landscape, and it is especially relevant right now because it takes on new dimensions with the national education policy. So, I'd like to also focus on the implications of the NEP on the topic. So, the NEP marks a significant shift in our approach to education. It recognizes the need to nurture not just academic skills, but also the holistic development of children, which I feel was significantly absent from our educational ecosystem. One of the key aspects of this holistic development is instilling children with agency, which means empowering them to make informed choices, take responsibility, and also shape their own futures. The role of teachers in this endeavor cannot be overstated because teachers are not just conveyors of knowledge, but they're also mentors and guides to their students. They also, as Archie mentioned, that sometimes they're carrier of moral beliefs. So consciously or unconsciously, they also shape the character and values of the next generation through their behavior. They play a vital role also in creating a learning environment where students feel empowered to express their ideas, ask questions, and take ownership of their own education. So, in the NEP 2020, there is a call to shift from the traditional teacher centric model to a more learner centric one. This shift emphasizes the importance of customized learning, which speakers before me have elaborated upon. And this customized learning is one where teachers adapt their methods to the unique needs and interests of each student. So, in essence, this approach allows students to develop agency by choosing what and how they choose to learn. Instead of assuming what is best for children, which is highly paternalistic, children can have a say within the broader framework of education. So that teachers serve as facilitators and not as imposers or dictators. That is guiding their students in their learning journey instead of imposing, helping them discover their passions and strengths. Furthermore, the NEP also advocates for a more experiential and hands-on approach to education. So how this fosters agency is that students are engaged in projects, internships, and real-world experiences of problem solving. And this instills them with confidence to navigate the complexities of life beyond the classroom. And teachers in this context become facilitators of these experiences, helping students to apply and transfer their classroom knowledge to real life situations. But looking at this only through a classroom sense kind of narrows the scope of the topic. So we also need to focus on the community. The community, including parents, caregivers, and society as a whole, also plays an equally crucial role. Communities, I think, should serve as an extension of the classroom and reinstill values and skills that um, we as a society aspire to. Parents, in particular, also have a vital role to play because they are primary agents of socialization and, in essence, the first teachers of a child's life. In the NEP, there is also a call for greater parental involvement because parents should encourage their kids to ask questions and explore interests in how parents choose to behave with their kids and treat them at home in the personal sphere is also something that greatly shapes their own experiences and their own behaviors. So, by fostering open communication and a supportive environment at home, parents also empower their children to become more independent and self reliant. The community also at large can offer valuable resources and support. This is because the community can help bridge the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical applications in the real world, as I mentioned, with experiential learning. So, in conclusion, empowering children with agency is not just an educational concept, and limiting it to the four walls of the classroom would be an injustice to the topic. It is a social imperative first and foremost, and the NEP acknowledges this and sets the stage for a transformative change in our educational system. Teachers and the community are linchpins in this transformation, and they must work hand in hand to ensure that every child is equipped with skills and real world skills to responsibly shape their own future. So, as we move forward in implementing the NEP, it is also important to remember that uh, true success of this policy will be seen in the empowered and self directed students it procures. So I think the system as a whole, the educational system, and we as a society should commit to fostering a culture of agency where every child has the freedom to dream and the courage and the resources to pursue their dream, and also the knowledge and skills to turn them into reality. Thank you. That is all from my end.
Thank you so much, Keertni, and that was pretty informative. I think you laid it out in a lot of detail on how to actually vest children with that kind of agency, be it in curriculum design, be it in its administration and related matters. So thank you so much. And we will engage with you perhaps on another perspective, which is, I think, like indirectly related with the theme you just explored. So we'll be enthusiastic to listen to your views. And I think that it's time to have the last speaker on board for this session. Radhika, I think you can unmute and please share your views with us.
Hi, I'll be talking about fostering leadership skills in young children through curriculums. Leadership is the art of influencing, motivating, guiding people to achieve a shared goal. And in children, this means the capacity to showcase decision making in their day to day lives, be unafraid to express and stand out. But how can a second, third, or a fourth standard student become a leader? This can be possible by creating an environment which helps foster leadership skills. And this will also help build emotional intelligence in young children, which is just as necessary as academic intelligence in today's competitive world, thus warranting the need for it to be part of curriculums. So, how do we cultivate leadership skills? Firstly, developing communication skills by competitions or classroom activities so that students take the stage. They let go of inhibitions or fears that are holding them back. Secondly, could be teaching them listening skills, observation skills, important planning skills so they submit within a deadline, or problem solving competitions. Basically, activities that encourage them to wonder, how can I fix this, or what can I do to fix this, instead of negatively approaching it. And these could be individual tasks, or even better if they're group projects, as that will help them collaborate, showcase teamwork. Another activity which is quite new these days are by performing skits, especially stress skits, where students are divided into two teams and they can act out how they would respond. So it helps them know their strengths and weaknesses and also their teammates' strengths and weaknesses. And also encouraging decision making instead of getting overwhelmed or, like Anshul mentioned, following rules or obeying orders. Expecting them to lead by teaching them to obey is definitely not working. So the steps that could be taken could be something very small, like making them spontaneously choose what competition they want to participate in, what project they like to do. So they learn to trust their instincts and also learn concepts of responsibility, understand that there are also consequences of making a decision. And this could be by encouraging them to read new material, expanding their minds to newer ideas by joining new clubs outside of academia. And of course, sports. Along with teamwork, leadership will teach students how to manage their emotions and also handle pressure. Another important technique that can influence students is modeling leadership behavior, because children often learn best by imitation. So, showing them what that's like by letting them spectate activities or use technology to show leaders how they act, talk, speak, work. So, these can help them pick up cues or even find a field of their interest. And most importantly, when teachers acknowledge and compliment their small steps, encourage and boost their confidence, it will also train their minds to seek such rewards, to be more proactive. So, through these steps, a child will learn how to tell not just captivating stories or listen properly, but they'll also help make informed decisions, take responsibility. Especially because schools are a huge part of a child's life. They spend majority of their times there, and how they see the world is shaped there. So, what better place to begin teaching them leadership skills than investing in designing a curriculum that enables and empowers them, provides them with tools necessary so that they become the leaders of tomorrow that schools actually intend them to be. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Radhika. And I really appreciated how you did, provide a kind of alternative solution to the current, teaching techniques, especially with that stress response kit, because I think it's very important that the children that we are teaching or, the subjects of that education are also very well aware about, how they might react, how they can regulate their boundaries. Because I think these are soft skills which are not really covered in the ambit of, let's say, the education which is propagating currently, or even in the ambit of the NEP. Because I think that not only do these plans or these techniques need very protracted, or a very dedicated, follow through. Because I would say that developing that kind of degree of self awareness among students, it itself is a very daunting task. And I feel that a lot of aims of the NEP, just like Achal pointed it out, they are dealing with very superficial aims, just by categorizing things into good, evil, bad, or something like that, which will earn you a bad name or a good name. I don't think that's a very, I would say, good approach to introduce people to the spectrum of human behavior. Because I think that instead of, propagating this thinking that everything is black and white, or ethics is just about um, doing good and doing like that. Because I would say that 8 years ago I would have agreed with that kind of education. But now, after going through such experiences which have been very formative in my life views and all such, which have actually challenged the kind of education and have put me in these challenging situations, I feel I do realize that importance, that I don't think our curriculums had taught us about human behavior as a spectrum. It taught us human behavior as something like, either it's a very Hobbesian behavior, nasty, brutish, and short tempered, or it is like completely angelic, which is not, summarizing the essence of it. So thank you so much, Radhika, for that. And since I did say that I would deal with Achal's theme in particular for this session as an extended project, or let's say an extended thread of our discussion, I think I would like to start this thread of discussion by, reflecting on two key events. One was, I think all of you were a part of it there. It was the workplace ethics session. And I remember most of the responses said that they hadn't encountered this kind of session even in institutions of higher academia, because I presume that most of you either must have done your bachelor's, or either are doing it, are in the process of it, or your master's. And there was no such session which dealt with topics such as power abuse, or regulating your boundaries, or even stating them. So I would ask you one question, and I would like you to reflect on it. That first of all, when we are dealing with such situations and introducing children, we are faced with the prospect of introducing children and making them next generation leaders or participants in the workforce. How do we actually introduce these topics in a way which is amenable to a young child? Because I would like that not only do we stress upon the necessity of such, I would say, interventions, but also how can they be done? Because I would say that while having a very strong normative compass that it should be done is a good enough point to pursue that, but at the same time, we should also deal with the how, because the devil lies in the details. So I would like you to dwell on this question in particular, as to whenever we have to sensitize people about emotional regulation, workplace ethics, and all these sentiments which come with dealing with harassment or a traumatic event, how can we make this training more amenable to a young child? First of all, this. And second of all, I would open the discussion like to a more bilingual, or let's say multilingual medium, that throughout our value education, as Achal pointed out, we are taught that, some things or the human behavior revolves around key pillars of morality, truth, and most of all these are like, based on abstinence. Do not steal, do not lie, do not do this, or do not do that. Yeah, but I think whenever we are growing up, or whenever we see, I would say cinema is a very potent medium of expressing ambiguity and presenting the ambiguity in human behavior itself. I remember that from there's a progression. झूठ नहीं बोलना चाहिए, do not lie, and we move on to जिस झूठ से किसी का घर बसता हो वो झूठ झूठ नहीं होता. But at the same time, do you feel that the discussion on the consequences of these ambiguous actions is by and large missing? Because I always felt as a child that, just जो घर भी झूठ के प्रेमाइस पे बसा हो, या जो घर झूठ पर भी बसा हो, घर भी घर नहीं होता. इट फॉल्स लाइक अ हाउस ऑफ कार्ड्स, because there was another juxtaposing saying which said that एक झूठ बोलने के लिए 100 झूठ बोलने पड़ते हैं. You have to tell 1,000 lies to cover your tracks. And even there, this is a part in ancient Confucian philosophy about consequences, that whenever you are out to murder someone, dig two graves, not just of the person you are going to murder, but for yourself too. So I would like to ask you, or let's ponder upon it. What was a very significant life, event, or let's say, what was a significant event which caused you to challenge these beliefs, these watertight beliefs about morality? Or let's say, reflect on an event where you were the hero and the villain in someone's story, because this is very important to, let's say, integrate this sentiment of self-awareness. I want to see how self-aware you are, because before developing these strategies of moral ambiguity and introducing people to a human spectrum of behavior, I would like you to ponder on this event. Either which event has challenged your beliefs about the kind of moral education we have received in schools, which is by and large based on abstention. Second of all, if you were the villain and the hero simultaneously in these stories, because what I really want to see is whether you really recognize your behavior, and if you were prospective educators, and if you were tasked with explaining human behavior, what is right and what is wrong to your students, how would you do it with the aid of your own experiences? Because I would really not like you to just channel in your traumas and then trigger it, but reflect on some events which are not too intense that they trigger your trauma, right? Because I feel that even dealing with these events is quite an intense exercise, because it really demands us to see us in a mold that we never really prefer to see us in. Yeah. So I think that the by and large takeaway of this session would be how to pursue this kind of model, or how to pursue this kind of strategy, which not only makes children better leaders or more competent in managing their own emotions, or just gelling in with the demands of the current curriculum or the future possibilities they might face, but also be very self-aware, because we need to understand that curriculums are not just about intelligence questions. They're also about developing a social and emotional quotient as well. So I would like you that by virtue of these tasks, these two tasks, where you're dealing with the own ambiguity, you felt that there is existing in human life which is not encapsulated in the scope of moral textbooks, and the other tasks, such as how to really make these very intense emotions more explainable, more understandable to a younger population. Because I think this is a part of early childhood education that we are by and large missing currently. So I would like you to just reflect on this. A lot of you might have my email ID owing to the previous task, and I appreciate your participation because I received all your briefs, but I'm just typing it in so that you can just, mull over these questions. No more than, I would say, 2 pages or something like that, because sometimes people are just confused about, where to limit that kind of expression. So I would like you to, reflect on this very briefly. And what I'm looking for is how able are you able to express with what kind of ability you are able to express yourself. Because again, this is the point that we are not able to stress upon enough in our education. An explanation does not always have to span a book. It does not always have to span 7 to 8 pages. It can be done very succinctly and in a manner which is more sensitive to your own demands, as well as the demands of the question. Because a lot of times I feel that the students are not really taught how to read the question or how to understand it, which also boils over in how literally do they read these so-called values. So I would like you to reflect on these two questions. Yeah. So you can mail your responses in a Word doc at this email address. Please note it down, or you can just paste it in your inbox somewhere or the other, so that I can really view and engage with you on that. Because a lot of people who had sent their responses to me before, they said that I was not able to get back to them in a manner that I should have been able to. But currently I am like in midst of some family issues. So it's like it's taking up a bit of a time. But I would like you to engage, because even if I'm not able to motivate you directly over there, I don't want to stand with a rod over your head, right? So I think that, the impetus you are getting of engaging with yourself should be kind of enough to get you about this task. Because this is not just about, doing a task for the policy Manthan and Sarkari school. This is also about, this is also foundational stage. If you're going to be a future educator or a policy maker, how are you going to engage your stakeholders in this discussion? Because a lot of times what happens is, and I also observed it in the sessions like that were before the September batch, that we were not able to engage with issues as much as we should have. Like it, missed that kind of emotional engagement which should have been there while we are discussing these issues. I mean, we are mostly caught up with stats, we are mostly caught up with a lot of case studies, but we need to question our own involvement in this. So I would like you to engage with these questions and mail your responses to me. You can take your time. I mean, I can wait till the next policy Manthan. Yeah. And I would like to announce one more thing, that before you complete your internship period, I would like you to just give me a kind of feedback about these policy Manthans. Like it can be a paragraph, or you can write it in the body of your email or anything, or you can text it to me directly, because it will just help me to know what did you gain from that. We are actually focusing on the impact objectives from these sessions, because I just don't want them to be relegated to that, a few people came in, they shared their views, they spoke, and then they went away. Because this is not an internship of that kind. I'm just trying to, think about or rethink the entire structure of how Sarkari school is basically run. Because if we are going to like preach about accountability, if we are going to preach about transparency, self awareness, and a democratic exchange, then we better, get to it. So this is why either I'll circulate a feedback form, and in case I don't, then please feel free to, just reach out to me via text or email about what did you actually learn from these policy months. And if this medium was productive enough for you to engage in initiatives like this, or maybe even better than that, so that we can, improve upon the structure too. And maybe if you are going to extend your stint at Sarkari school and work more with us, so I would say that it would make for a more amenable work environment, as well as a more productive experience for you in terms of an internship. Yeah. So I think we'll be ending the session on this note, and I'll see you all in the next Policy Month session. So I hope for your participation. It should be